Every man wants to know the truth he's never been taught. The truth no father explained, no friend articulated, no culture dared to admit. The truth that decides whether a woman stays or walks away without looking back. What makes a woman stay with a man not for a season, not out of convenience, not out of fear or routine, but out of something deeper than logic and stronger than temptation? Men think it's money. They think it's looks. They think it's the performance of stability. But none of those things create the kind of attachment that survives storms, time, setbacks, competition, or change. Women don't stay because a man is impressive. They stay because a man is irreplaceable. And the qualities that make him irreplaceable aren't the ones men brag about. They're the ones women feel in their bodies before they ever articulate them with words. A woman doesn't stay because you bought her flowers, or because you posted a photo with her, or because you said all the right lines at the right times. A woman stays because something in you activates something ancient in her, something primal that modern society pretends no longer exists. She bonds to the man who makes her feel a very specific cocktail of emotions: safety, value, direction, and once those three imprint on her nervous system, she cannot detach without tearing a part of herself away. That's the kind of connection men see in movies but rarely experience in real life. Because most men don't know how to embody the traits that awaken it. Think about the men women never leave. They're not perfect. They're not always the richest or the hottest or the smoothest. But they possess a gravity, a presence, a psychological weight. When they walk into a room, something shifts. When they speak, people listen. When chaos hits, they don't collapse, they stabilize. When uncertainty grows, they don't hide, they lead. Women feel that energy on instinct, long before they analyze it. They can't fully explain it, but they recognize it instantly. It's the feeling of, with this man, I'm safe. With this man, I matter. With this man, life has direction. Those three sensations are the cornerstone of female attachment. Remove one, the bond weakens. Remove all three, the relationship dies. But when they're present, leaving becomes unthinkable. The first layer is the one society tries hardest to erase, the woman's need for safety. Not emotional safety alone, but existential safety. She wants a man who can be soft with her and unshakable with the world. She wants a man who doesn't seek conflict but can handle it. A man who doesn't provoke danger but isn't afraid of it. A man who won't crumble when life gets sharp. Modern men confuse this with aggression. They think danger means intimidation. They think dominance means yelling. They think strength means control. But women don't stay with men who try to scare them. They stay with men who make them feel like nothing out there can scare them. And she feels that not through your words, but through your reactions. When someone disrespects you, does your posture change? When something unexpected happens, do your eyes sharpen or does your body panic? When she's upset, do you rise or do you melt? Women study the small moments, the micro-reactions, the unconscious signals you don't even know you're giving off. Because her nervous system is constantly asking the same silent question: can this man protect the life we build together? Not in a caveman sense, but in the sense that counts: emotional, social, psychological, and when necessary, physical. If she senses yes, her attachment deepens. If she senses no, something inside her disconnects long before she ever says the words out loud. But here's where most men misunderstand this dynamic. They think making a woman feel safe means making her the center of their universe. They drop their goals, their ambitions, their fire, believing that devotion is the ultimate demonstration of love. They don't realize that the moment they abandon their mission, they abandon the very thing that made the woman attracted to them in the first place. A woman doesn't stay with a man who orbits around her. She stays with a man she can orbit beside, a man whose life has momentum, challenge, purpose, direction. Women don't attach to a man who needs her to feel complete. They attach to a man who is complete enough to walk a meaningful path, and invites her to walk with him. This is the second layer of irreplaceability, the man with mission. The man whose eyes show hunger, whose actions show progress, whose days show intention. A woman can love you deeply, passionately, sincerely, but if she senses you've lost your edge, she won't respect you. And without respect, attachment eventually crumbles. Not because she's ungrateful, but because her biology ties attraction to a man's trajectory. A man moving forward awakens desire. A man standing still kills it. She stays with the man who gives her a future, not just a present. And then comes the third layer, the one most men fear the most because they misunderstand it entirely. Leadership. Not the leadership of barking orders, not the leadership of ego, but the leadership of direction. The leadership of responsibility. The leadership of emotional steadiness. A woman is exhausted by indecision. Exhausted by being the one who drives the relationship forward. Exhausted by the man who always responds with, "I don't know, what do you think?" Women leave men not because they're bad but because they're passive. Because they're invisible. Because they force her to steer when all she wants is to exhale and trust your hands on the wheel. She wants a man who makes decisions with clarity. Who handles the uncomfortable conversations without prompting. Who plans something without being told. Who takes responsibility when things go wrong and initiative when things need to happen. Not because she's incapable, she's more than capable, but because polarity dies when both people carry masculine energy. A woman becomes soft when a man becomes steady. A woman becomes loving when a man becomes grounded. A woman becomes devoted when a man becomes directional. This is the dynamic modern culture hates acknowledging, yet it's the dynamic reality refuses to ignore. Women don't stay with perfect men. They stay with directional men. They stay with purposeful men. They stay with capable men. They stay with men whose presence alters their emotional landscape. Men who make them feel like no matter what happens, life is held, guided, protected. A woman never leaves the man who awakens all three instincts within her: safety, value, direction. Because those instincts are ancient. They're older than language, older than culture, older than every modern narrative that tries to pretend men and women are interchangeable. You can argue with psychology. You can debate sociology. But you cannot argue with biology. This is why women leave men who did everything right. They did everything except embody their core masculine essence. They gave affection but not protection. Presence but not purpose. Partnership but not leadership. They became comfortable, agreeable, predictable, and predictable is death to feminine energy. Women don't want chaos, but they want a man with an edge. A man with spine. A man with vision. A man with pulse. A man who holds life with both hands and moves through the world like he belongs in it. That is the man a woman never leaves. Not because she can't. Because she doesn't want to. Because her entire body, mind, and heart recognize him as something rare, the fusion of safety, purpose, and direction that few men in the modern world embody. She'll stand by him through storms. She'll choose him even when life offers smoother options. She'll protect the bond as fiercely as he protects her. Because when a woman meets a man who activates her deepest instincts, leaving him would feel like tearing herself away from her own destiny. But understanding what makes a man irreplaceable is only the beginning. The deeper truth comes when you realize that a woman doesn't bond to who you pretend to be. She bonds to who you are when pressure reveals you. The parts of you she sees when you're not performing, not impressing, not trying to win her over. Women don't stay because of the highlight reel. They stay because of the unfiltered moments, the ones you think she barely notices but that define the entire connection. And this is where most men sabotage themselves without ever knowing why. A woman studies you in silence. Not when you're speaking confidently, but when you're quiet. Not when you're posting victories, but when life hits you in the ribs. She watches how you respond to disappointment, to setbacks, to disrespect, to uncertainty. She watches how you treat people you don't need. She watches how you react to things you can't control. She watches the way your energy shifts under stress. Because this is the real you, and this is the man she's deciding whether she can build her future on. A woman never leaves the man whose soul stays consistent even when circumstances don't. Because reliability is not about perfection, it's about internal steadiness. You want to know when she truly begins to detach? It's not during arguments. Not during rough patches. Not when she gets frustrated. Those moments are emotional turbulence, not disconnection. Women detach in the quiet moments when she realizes she cannot lean on you the way she needs to. When she realizes you crumble under pressure instead of stabilizing it. When she realizes your confidence only exists on good days. When she realizes your ambition is only talk. When she realizes your leadership appears only when things are easy. These are the moments that make a woman slowly pull away long before she ever physically leaves. Because deep inside every woman lives the unspoken desire to be with a man whose presence doesn't fluctuate like weather. A man whose center holds even when life doesn't. A man who is not perfect but is anchored. Anchored in purpose, anchored in values, anchored in identity. A man who isn't looking to the world for validation because he has already validated himself. This is why confidence cannot be faked. Women feel the difference. True masculine confidence is quiet, unmovable, self-sustaining. False confidence is loud, reactive, and dependent on approval. One creates loyalty. The other creates doubt. And here's where the psychology gets brutal. A woman doesn't leave the man who makes her feel safe. She leaves the man she has to become safe from. She doesn't leave the man with ambition. She leaves the man whose dreams she has to carry because he won't. She doesn't leave the man who leads. She leaves the man she has to mother. And once she steps into the role of his emotional protector, his motivator, his direction giver, the polarity collapses. Attraction dies. Respect erodes. Devotion fades. And once respect dies, nothing can be resurrected. Not sex, not romance, not effort. Respect is the root of female attraction. Everything else grows from it. But here's the part most men never understand. A woman's respect isn't earned through dominance. It's earned through responsibility. Women don't stay because you intimidate the world. They stay because you carry the world without collapsing. Leadership in a relationship isn't about control. It's about direction. Not do what I say, but I'll take responsibility for the hard parts so you can breathe. Not follow me, but I know where we're going. Not I'm in charge, but you're safe with me because I'm in control of myself. The man a woman never leaves doesn't just lead her, he leads himself. He leads his emotions, his impulses, his habits, his direction, his life. And when she sees a man who is sovereign over himself, she knows instinctively he can hold the relationship. She knows she doesn't have to play the masculine role. She knows she doesn't have to constantly check if everything is okay. She knows she can relax into her feminine nature, not by force, not by pressure, but by the gravity of his presence. And that is the paradox. A woman becomes more feminine around a truly masculine man. Not because she's forced to, but because her nervous system finally feels safe enough to let down its armor. She becomes softer, more nurturing, more loving, more loyal. Not because she must, but because polarity creates desire. When a man embodies masculine energy, direction, stability, strength, a woman naturally responds with softness, devotion, passion. Polarity is not something you perform. It's something you awaken. Now let's talk about the side of this dynamic that men almost never hear. The man a woman never leaves also makes her feel emotionally seen. Not coddled, not babied, not indulged, seen. Masculinity isn't coldness. It's clarity. A woman doesn't need a therapist. She needs a man who can emotionally meet her without losing himself. Who listens without bending his identity. Who cares without collapsing. Who understands her feelings without trying to fix them immediately. Who can hold space for her storms without being swept away. A woman stays with a man who can do something almost no man is taught to do. Remain emotionally open without becoming emotionally weak. That is one of the rarest skills in the world. Men who close off emotionally become stone walls. Men who open too much become emotional children. But the man a woman never leaves finds the middle. Vulnerability without fragility. Compassion without self-abandonment. Softness without losing structure. He can say, I hear you, I feel you, I'm with you, without ever saying, I'll dissolve myself to keep you calm. This balance makes her feel something she can't manufacture or replace: emotional safety. Physical safety anchors her body. Emotional safety anchors her heart. Direction anchors her future. These three together create the bond that keeps her from even considering leaving. Not because she's trapped, but because she's fulfilled. But here's the part almost no one says out loud: a woman never leaves the man she admires. Admiration is the deepest form of female love. It is the type of love that withstands temptation, adversity, conflict, time. It's the kind of love that makes her choose you not because she has to, but because losing you feels like losing the best version of herself. And admiration is earned not through grand displays, but through daily consistency. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak about your mission, the way you handle problems, the way you show up even when you're tired, the way you choose integrity over convenience. Admiration is rooted in one timeless truth. A woman never leaves the man she looks up to. Not in a submissive way, but in a reverential way. The way she looks at him when he's focused. The way she watches him solve problems. The way she observes him bouncing back from pain. The way she listens to him speak about his purpose. The way she sees him navigate the world with calm certainty. That admiration becomes her anchor, her attraction, her loyalty, her devotion. And here is the quiet truth no man wants to admit but every woman knows. Women don't leave men they're truly in love with. They leave men they can no longer admire. They leave men whose strength faded, whose ambition died, whose leadership dissolved, whose confidence cracked. Not because women are cruel, but because they cannot attach to a man whose life force has dimmed. But when she meets the man who embodies all three primal triggers, safety, purpose, direction, she imprints. She bonds. She roots herself into him the way roots wrap around the strongest parts of a tree. She doesn't stay because of obligation. She stays because every part of her knows she cannot replace what she feels with him. She stays because he brings out the best version of her. She stays because she sees her future through him. She stays because she recognizes the rarity of the man standing before her. A man like that doesn't need to fear losing a woman. He doesn't need to chase her, beg her, monitor her, test her, or perform for her. Because he knows something most men never learn. In the presence of a truly irreplaceable man, leaving isn't a choice a woman considers. It's a loss she cannot bear. A woman never leaves the man whose presence rewires her. And this final truth is where everything becomes clear, because it reveals the deepest layer, the one men almost never see, the one women almost never say, the one that shapes the trajectory of every relationship she ever commits to. A woman stays not because of who the man is in the beginning, but because of who he remains when life tests him. Every woman has watched a man start strong and slowly deteriorate into someone unrecognizable. Every woman has felt the disappointment of seeing a man's energy fade after the chase is over. And every woman has experienced the quiet heartbreak of realizing that he was capable of being great, but only temporarily. That's why a woman never leaves the man who stays who he was at the start. Not in routine, not in performance, but in essence. Because the truth is, a woman falls in love with a man's potential, but she stays in love with his consistency. Potential ignites attraction. Consistency sustains devotion. And consistency isn't about doing the same things. It's about being the same person. A man whose values don't shift when it's inconvenient. Whose standards don't collapse under pressure. Whose character doesn't evaporate when life becomes complicated. A man who doesn't betray his identity when comfort tempts him. This kind of consistency is rare, and that's why the bond it creates is unbreakable. The man a woman never leaves doesn't become someone else once he has her. He doesn't get comfortable. He doesn't settle into mediocrity. He doesn't allow routine to replace intensity or predictability to replace polarity. He understands something fundamental about feminine psychology. A woman doesn't fall in love once. She falls in love over and over, and the man she stays with is the man who continually gives her reasons to fall again. Not through theatrics. Not through manipulation. But through presence, energy, strength, ambition, and emotional depth. The very qualities that attracted her are the qualities she needs to keep feeling from him, not occasionally, but consistently. A woman never leaves the man who maintains the edge she first felt in him. Not an edge of danger, but an edge of power. The edge in the way he speaks with certainty. The edge in the way he carries himself with intention. The edge in the way he walks into a room already knowing who he is. The edge in the way he looks at her, not as an accomplishment, but as a partner standing beside a man who knows where he's going. Women don't detach from men with edge. They detach from men who dull themselves to avoid discomfort. They detach from men who apologize for their masculinity. They detach from men who weaken to maintain harmony. Because once the edge is gone, so is the polarity that made the relationship feel alive. And here's the truth most men hate admitting. A woman never leaves the man who continues to grow. Growth is masculine oxygen. Without it, a man suffocates. Without it, a relationship suffocates. A woman bonds to momentum. If she senses you're becoming wiser, stronger, more disciplined, more focused, more intentional, her attraction deepens. But if she senses you're becoming stagnant, passive, complacent, her attraction quietly dies years before she ever says a word. Because women don't detach loudly. They detach silently, slowly, softly, almost invisibly, until one day, she feels nothing. The man a woman never leaves rejects stagnation. He grows not to impress her, not to keep her, not to compete, but because internal evolution is a masculine need. He becomes more because something inside him refuses to remain the same. He becomes disciplined because direction requires structure. He becomes wiser because leadership requires clarity. He becomes healthier because strength requires longevity. His woman does not have to push him to grow. She simply witnesses it and gravitates toward it. Because a man who grows becomes a man who remains irreplaceable. Not because of competition, but because no one else can replicate the depth of who he is becoming. But growth alone is not enough. The man she never leaves also understands polarity. He knows that masculine energy is not aggression, nor control, nor dominance, but presence. Pure, grounded presence. The kind of presence that makes her feel seen without being analyzed. The kind of presence that makes her open without being pushed. The kind of presence that makes her soften without being asked. A woman stays with a man who makes her feel like the world disappears when he looks at her. Not because he's obsessed. Not because he's needy. But because his presence is unfragmented. Masculine presence is the ability to give your full attention without losing your center. And feminine energy responds to that like fire responds to oxygen. She never leaves the man who can handle her emotions without losing himself. The man who doesn't shame her intensity, doesn't punish her vulnerability, doesn't dismiss her fears, doesn't argue with her feelings. Instead, he absorbs, understands, guides. He doesn't match her storm, he grounds it. He doesn't overpower her sensitivity, he holds it. And because he does, she stops looking for emotional safety anywhere else. Emotional safety is not about comfort. It's about containment. And very few men know how to contain a woman emotionally without collapsing or shutting down. But let's go deeper. A woman never leaves the man she respects. Respect is the throne upon which female devotion sits. Women cannot love where they do not respect. They can stay, they can tolerate, they can coexist, but they cannot attach. Respect is not demanded, it is not yelled into existence, it is not bought. Respect is felt. Respect is witnessed. Respect is earned through who you are when life squeezes you. A woman respects the man who moves through the world with quiet confidence, who doesn't seek validation, who knows his value, who stands by his principles even when they cost him, who faces hardship without self-pity, who admits when he's wrong without collapsing, who chooses self-control over impulse, who chooses integrity over convenience. When a woman respects a man like that, she doesn't just stay. She protects the bond, she invests into it, she guards it like a treasure. This is why women stay with men through illness, failure, struggle, uncertainty. Because respect does not die in hardship. Respect dies in weakness of character, weakness of spirit, weakness of purpose, weakness of integrity. A woman will stay with a man who has lost everything except himself. But she will leave the man who has everything except himself. Because you can lose money, health, status, comfort, but if you lose your essence, the relationship loses its masculine foundation. And now the deepest layer. A woman never leaves the man who awakens the best version of herself. Not the man who controls her. Not the man who limits her. The man who makes her feel more feminine, more valued, more alive, more seen, more understood, more inspired. When a woman sees herself becoming better because of a man, she bonds to him with a loyalty that does not break. Because to detach from him would mean detaching from the version of herself she loves the most. That is the ultimate power of an irreplaceable man. He becomes the mirror through which she sees her highest potential. He doesn't try to change her, he inspires her. He doesn't push her, he elevates her. He doesn't demand loyalty, he evokes it. He doesn't force love, he becomes the home love returns to naturally. And once a woman feels that kind of connection, no external temptation matters. No competition matters. No temporary frustration matters. Because the relationship is not built on circumstance, it is built on identity. He is part of how she defines herself. Leaving him would mean losing the path she walked alongside him. And this is the final truth. A woman never leaves the man who never leaves himself. The man whose identity does not crumble under pain. The man who does not abandon his purpose under pressure. The man who does not betray his character for approval. The man who is not afraid to be exactly who he is. The man who leads not for power, but for direction. The man who protects not to control, but to create safety. The man who strives not to impress, but because growth is his nature. Irreplaceable men are rare. But when a woman meets one, truly meets one, she stays not because she must, but because leaving him would feel like leaving the life she was meant to live.